Hello BookTube, and welcome to this Sideline video being recorded on a rainy, windy night as Storm Ciarán makes its way across the United Kingdom. Welcome also to the first video recorded during my year-long Read What You Own challenge, for which I was inspired to create the logo that you can see here at the top of the screen. Very lovely. Using it a bit too soon, though. The book we're going to talk about today is not part of that challenge. It was finished before the start date. What I plan to do, though, is start a countdown when I do begin my 50 challenge books. What will appear on screen each time I review one of those will be a number like 3 of 50 or 28 of 50, which hopefully I do as well as that even, so that you and I will both know exactly how the challenge is going. This Sideline video has been a long time coming. It was 5 months ago that I committed to reading 3 books which had defeated me in the past, books I did not finish, and I needed to practice what I was preaching because I made a statement in my early coffee break content to the effect of commit to the book, and people didn't know me, viewers didn't know whether I could commit to anything, so I had to demonstrate, so I picked 3 books. Repeat viewers will already know what these are, okay? But for anyone who's viewing my channel for the first time, if you check the description box, you'll see links to all the previous videos. But these are the books that I did not finish in the past and that I wanted to be able to say that I had committed to and read. They were The Wind in the Willows by Kenneth Grahame, Dune by Frank Herbert, and Watership Down by Richard Adams. Books 1 and 2 have been finished. The order of this list, however, I'd like to say it was no accident. It was compiled on a gut feeling that of these 3 titles, The Wind in the Willows would probably be easiest for me to finish. Dune would be a little tougher, but Watership Down, I felt, was the book that was going to challenge me the most. Turns out my instincts were correct. Allow me to quote from the book itself by way of introduction. A man walks upright. For him, it is strenuous to climb a steep hill because he has to keep pushing his own vertical mass upward and cannot gain any momentum. Rabbits can go fast uphill. On the other hand, the man is 5 or 6 feet above the hillside and can see all round. To him, the ground may be steep and rough, but on the whole it is even, and he can pick his direction easily from the top of his 6-foot moving tower. The rabbit's anxieties and strain in climbing the down were different, therefore, from those which you, reader, will experience if you go there. Their main trouble was not bodily fatigue. When Hazel had said that they were all tired out, he had meant that they were feeling the strain of prolonged insecurity and fear. That was from pages 222 to 223. Reading Watership Down truly felt like being a rabbit climbing a steep hill. Getting a copy of the book was a challenge in itself. I used to own a paperback copy of Watership Down, a second-hand book. Don't remember how much I paid or where I got it. After making my unsuccessful attempts to read it, I took the decision to just get rid of the book, and I'd say that was probably 8-9 years ago. So I had to decide how was I going to get a new copy. A visit to the local library was not successful. I found Richard Adams' Shardik, but not Watership Down. The cheapest Kindle version was going to cost me $8.99. The cheapest paperback version would be £5, including postage, so that worked out roughly the same. Now, whereas I did buy myself a Kindle copy of Dune, I really didn't want to pay for or own Watership Down, and that was also based on this gut feeling, which was confident that I would finish the book, but less sure that I'd ever look at it after that. So what I was hoping for was a way I could read it for free, and I got my wish. Our library has an ebook and e-audiobook service, which I can access via mobile app. With all the books on my Kindle, I often forget that I can look for ebooks there as well. So I'm pleased to say that my library has come through once again, and I read a free ebook copy of Watership Down, published in 2014 by One World Publications. Yes, I am afraid I can't be trusted to talk about my reactions to this book without mentioning details that give the game away. If you have not yet read Watership Down, it's probably the better part of wisdom if you just leave the video now, go read the book, Form your own opinion of it first, okay? Because I'm going to tell you now that all my reactions are really just issues of personal taste. They are not indisputable arguments about the merits of Watership Down as a novel, and you'll soon find out why for those who do stick around. Okay, where to start? According to Richard Adams, Watership Down began as oral storytelling, tales that he made up to amuse his daughters during a long car journey to Stratford-on-Avon. I will pick up the official story from the Penguin UK website, and there's a link to that in the description box. Quote, "It was Adams' daughters and their relentless persistence that encouraged Adams to get the story down on the page about 18 months later. 7 publishers rejected the finished manuscript. The disappointment became so unbearable that Adams resorted to sending his wife to collect the returned copy. But once it was published, the reviews glowed. Copies sold beyond the original print run of 2,500 by many multiples, making it a near instant bestseller. Watership Down was similarly popular in the United States, where it became Penguin's all-time bestseller, with 50 million copies in print across 18 languages. Wow. So that was what motivated me to read, everyone, really. When a book wins millions of readers from different countries, different cultures, different languages, I mean, there has to be something, doesn't there? I mean, there has to be something worthwhile to capture all that attention. And so I can say that I do feel the book has great strengths, and I want to discuss those first. The first strength of Watership Down is that it is a rabbit story. Now, that might seem strange, but I tell you what, my Google research tells me that rabbits feature in European, Indigenous North American, Chinese, Japanese, Central American, and Central African myths and folktales. In fact, there's something doubly satisfying in Watership Down. Think about it. In addition to the story of Hazel and Fiver and Bigwig and Pipkin, and those stories fit the convention of folktales and myth, the rabbits in this novel have a mythology of their own, don't they? Which makes them even richer than just fable characters. The chapters I enjoyed most while reading Watership Down were the ones where the rabbits tell each other their stories, the ones about the great rabbit prince and all his trickster exploits. The second strength is the story's theme. It's a theme of questing, searching for a better life. Prehistoric humans populated the planet by moving out in search of new homes, better hunting grounds. For children, the story anticipates their future when they leave home and set up lives of their own. And it's true to say that many of the rabbit characters grow up during the novel. That is, they learn new things, they have their strength and their courage and their ingenuity tested. And the third strength, the realistic portrayal of danger and violence. Watership Down has grit. Richard Adams presents animals in states of paralyzed terror, exhaustion, taking desperate gambles and fighting for their lives. Female rabbits, when distressed by overcrowding or lack of food, eat their own litters. There are gunshot wounds, snares, and claws that cut just like knives. There are sudden deaths from shock and predator attacks, and the strange devices made by humans that move along roads and railways. English landscape has always been presented in fiction as green and pleasant, full of gentler, kinder places and people than those evil cities. The realism Adams creates is what I believe really gave this book its popular appeal. Without its darkness, Watership Down, I think it would have seemed a poor copycat of The Wind in the Willows. I would venture to say that it is darkness more than the other qualities of the book which make it a worldwide bestseller. Having said all those wonderful things about Watership Down, why did the book leave me feeling like a tired rabbit climbing a steep hill? Why did I have to renew the ebook when I was only 39% of the way through after 3 weeks? Why did it take me nearly 5 weeks to read a children's book? And why did I have to nag myself, you better read some more Watership Down, and some, because it was rare for me to want to read more than a couple of chapters at a sitting, even if I had more time. Reason 1, Richard Adams is not Kenneth Grahame. Sometimes I felt he was trying to capture the magical, poetic way of writing that Kenneth Grahame did have, but the psychic connection wasn't really there. The narrator's voice in Watership Down is human, it's not rabbit, and it interrupts the story now and again just to inform the readers about rabbit behavior. Now, I didn't find that ideal for the same reason that no interruption to a story is ideal. It breaks the illusion. I was more forgiving in this case because I kind of expect children's books to educate as well as entertain. But there were occasions where the purpose of the interruption couldn't tell you what it was. I interpreted it as, the narrator was so pleased to finally have human beings for company, as if it had been such a long time, that all it wanted to do was sort of spend time with people, talking about human perceptions and human concerns. I'm going to read you an example from page 287 to 288. And we're starting from the bottom of page 287, where it begins. The full moon, well risen in a cloudless eastern sky, covered the high solitude with its light. We are not conscious of daylight as that which displaces darkness. Daylight, even when the sun is clear of clouds, seems to us simply the natural condition of earth and air. When we think of the downs, we think of the downs in daylight, as we think of a rabbit with its fur on. Stubbs may have envisaged the skeleton inside the horse, but most of us do not. And we do not usually envisage the downs without daylight, even though the light is not part of the down itself, as the hide is part of the horse itself. We take daylight for granted. But moonlight is another matter. It is inconstant. The full moon wanes and returns again. Clouds may obscure it to an extent to which they cannot obscure daylight. Water is necessary to us, but a waterfall is not. Where it is to be found, it is something extra, a beautiful ornament. We need daylight, and to that extent it is utilitarian. But moonlight we do not need. When it comes, it serves no necessity. It transforms. It falls upon the banks and the grass, separating one long blade from another, turning a drift of brown frosted leaves from a single heap to... Are you getting the idea now? What is this all about? Adam sometimes tried to copy Kenneth Grahame's rich and wordy pastoral descriptions of countryside flora and fauna. His attempts did not move me. The effect was less like poetry and a little bit more like cataloguing. I'm going to read you this passage from page 165. By Neefrith, it was so hot that the lower part of the field was humid. The air was heavy with thick herbal smells, as though it were already late June. The watermint and marjoram, not yet flowering, gave off scent from their leaves, and here and there an early meadowsweet stood in bloom. The chiffchaff was busy all morning, high in a silver birch near the abandoned holes across the dip, and from deep in the copse, somewhere by the disused well, came the beautiful song of the blackcap. By early afternoon there was a stillness of heat, and a herd of cows from the higher fields slowly grazed their way down into the shade. You can compare this if you go back to my video where I covered The Wind in the Willows. I read a passage there where Grahame goes through the plants that bring themselves forward as springtime progresses up to the beginning of June. It's a completely different kind of prose. I feel like there's a similarity in these passages in terms of the plants mentioned and the fact of the time of year, but Kenneth Grahame he's just another level up. And when these pretty pieces of scene setting were dropped down in the middle of some very tense action where the time was short and lives were in danger, well, they just seem so disrespectful to the story characters. And I'm thinking of page 716. This is where General Woundwort and his thuggish rabbits, they found Hazel's warren on Watership Down, and they've launched an attack. They are literally digging their way into blocked up burrows so that Hazel's rabbits will have nowhere to hide. And there are newborn rabbits underground which will probably be destroyed. Now Hazel, Dandelion, and Blackberry, they managed to find one tunnel, one way out that hasn't been guarded by the general's rabbits. And so they're running down to the nearby farm. They're going to carry out a very risky plan to save the others. And every second counts, every second. And yet we stop for this. The great field at the foot of the escarpment had been reaped, but the straw had not yet been burned and lay in long pale rows upon the darker stubble, tenting over the bristling stalks and the weeds of harvest, knotgrass and Pimpernel, Fluellen and Speedwell, Heartsease and Persicary, colourless and still in the old moonlight. Between the lines of straw, the expanse of stubble was as open as the... I was just screaming in my head at this point, get on with it. Get on with it. Yeah. Oh, and Richard Adams made another mistake, which it's forgivable in the sense that at the time he did it, no one would have taken offense at it, but things are changed now. Richard Adams used ethnic stereotypes. When he writes dialogue, for example, for the seagull character Kahar, the spellings are clearly I dialect mimicking a German accent. And when I say German accent, I mean a German accent spoken by English actors pretending to be Germans, probably in a war movie, circa the 1950s, 1960s, which Richard Adams would have been very familiar with. And similarly, there's a mouse character whose I dialect is Italian, I shall put that in big air quotes, and probably taken from the same films. And as I say, it would have gone completely unnoticed by publishers, readers, everybody in the 1970s, but not anymore. It is an anachronism, and I couldn't help but feel mildly embarrassed as I was reading it. And last point, the rabbits in this story are less characters and more types. Fiver, for example, is the great prophet, the seer. Bigwig is blunt and pushy, but he's got a good heart. General Woundwort is a delusional tyrant. Blueberry is a bit of a fool. And Hazel is the sensible one, with one exception, which feels a bit contrived precisely because it was the only exception. Now, types are fine in fiction, but they work best when the pace is fast, the plotting is very tight, as it usually is in folk tales and myths. It's usually a very action-packed story. The journey from the rabbit's original burrow to the one that they set up in Watership Down was a very long journey. It took up about 40% of the book. And I found that slow traveling story, I needed something a bit more complex than types, personally, to want to keep going. In fact, anytime things were going well for our rabbits, I was usually a bit bored. I was most engaged when General Woundwort was exercising his crazy imperial ambitions and hunting down the Watership Down Warren. Right, everyone, that's all I have to say about Watership Down. Overall, I would summarize my feelings by saying I'm glad that I know this book. I'm glad that I understand why it's so well loved. And I'm glad that I committed to all 3 of the books in this little challenge. It remains to be seen how well I now get on with the 12 months of reading what I own. We shall see. Thanks very much, everybody, for joining me. Looking forward to seeing everyone again soon. Take care. Bye-bye.